Thiel believes that death is an excuse for giving up. He thinks that you don't try hard because one day you'll expire. He wants us to get mad about death being inevitable. Turns out Brian Johnson sold his company Braintree to PayPal. I'm wondering if he's the guinea pig. Maybe it's just me, but I don't want to look like a rehydrated raisin. Teal is one of those contrarian guys, the type who advocates for the devil, who can't see anything in the glass, much less the glass being half full. When he joined 45's transition team, it didn't make sense. Looking back, now it really does. Hey, I'm Kina. I talk about hard things with a soft voice, and if you find this interesting, share it with somebody. Teal doesn't talk much about Curtis Yarvin. He doesn't need to. His portfolio says enough. Palantir, the Thiel Fellowship, investments in alternative media, charter cities, and crypto infrastructure. Even remarking that freedom and democracy are no longer compatible. It looks less like venture capital and more like a move away from what Yarvin calls the cathedral. Yarvin spent years writing about why he thinks democracy doesn't work very well. His ideas are pretty radical. He thinks our whole system of voting and government is broken and that it needs to be replaced with something that's totally different, one where you don't vote. What makes this story interesting isn't just Yarvin's ideas, it's how Peter Thiel seems to live by these ideas in real life. Thiel has never said that he agrees with everything Curtis Yarvin writes, but if you look at how Thiel runs his businesses and spends his money, it looks like he's following Yarvin's playbook. This isn't about some secret plan between two guys. It's about how big ideas about politics can show up in the real world with someone with lots of money believes in them. I'm going to boil it all down to 4 ideas. By the end of this, you'll understand how this will impact you. The informal network of elite institutions, universities, nonprofits, media, bureaucracies. These shape public opinion and policy. These aren't accountable to voters. They function like a decentralized but unified unit. They use soft power to maintain control, all the while presenting as neutral but enforcing conformity, also known as rules. At the core of Yarvin's writing is a simple claim. We don't live in a democracy, not in the way we think we do. Real power doesn't sit in Congress or at the ballot box. It flows through elite institutions, universities, legacy media, foundations, and bureaucracies. And Yarvin calls this network the cathedral. To me, it's rich that people who've had access to and enjoy these elite institutions usually are the ones railing against it. Is it really because they're against it, or are they just pulling up the ladder behind them? You tell me in the comments as always. He proposes that these institutions don't govern through laws, but through consensus. It decides which opinions are respectable, which are dangerous, which are too ridiculous to mention. Its strength is that it doesn't appear to govern at all. It presents itself as neutral, scientific, moral, but its effect is as powerful as any monarchy. This isn't a worldview that most investors talk about openly, but Thiel's skepticism towards consensus is well documented. He sees universities not as temples of inquiry, but as credentialing monopolies. Mind you, he went to Stanford. Yarvin went to Brown and UC Berkeley. They think democratic legitimacy is for people who don't know the rules. They don't just bet against incumbents in the market, they bet against them in thought. What they want instead are rulers of society, ones who aren't elected. Rather, they are institutions that dominate the culture. Yarvin compares democracy to the Soviet Union, but with better PR. It masks authoritarian bureaucracy with participatory rituals. The electorate has no real power. Bureaucrats and elite networks, they run the state. The idea of democracy serves to keep people pacified. Elections change little. And that's because both parties operate within the ideological boundaries of the cathedral. Yarvin's alternative to democracy is not revolution, but actually formalism. Stop pretending power exists, make it explicit. Instead of rule by consensus where everyone shares power and no one is responsible, he proposes a system where a single figure holds real authority. In his writing, this often looks like a CEO/king, a sovereign who owns and governs a state the way a founder runs a company. Thiel, too, distrusts collective leadership. He notes that good startups are slightly less extreme kinds of cults. He sees founders as essentially precisely because they provide coherence. Innovation doesn't come from a committee. It comes from a singular vision, tightly held and precisely executed. The logic carries over into Thiel's worldview, where Yarvin speaks of sovereigns, Thiel speaks of founders, where Yarvin wants to refactor government like software. Thiel invests in companies that aim to outgovern governments. Palantir, for instance. In Yarvin's world, politics should be led by someone with root access. Rules should be held by the elites, competent elites, mind you. In Thiel's world, the future belongs to whoever writes the best code. Countries should be run like a company. The CEO owns shares and is fully responsible. Citizens are more like customers or shareholders than voters. He then wants to create a modern version of medieval city-states. It's made of fragmented, competing jurisdictions. Each is governed independently like a private company. People choose where they live based on values, efficiency, or even service. Competition replaces consensus as the organizing principle. The idea is that the ability to leave is more powerful than voting or protesting. Yarvin doesn't believe reform is possible. You don't fix a corrupted file by debating it. You delete it, you rewrite it. In his framework, protesting, voting, activism are mostly noise, and the only real power is to leave, leaving the system and building something else. Thiel, again, acts accordingly. He funds charter cities, alternative jurisdictions, experimental governance models. Crypto fits in here too, not as a speculative asset, but as an infrastructure for opt-out economics. For him, it wasn't just about money, it was about sovereignty. He doesn't believe that society is always getting better. Rather, he believes that progressive values are modern myths and that much of what we think of as progress is really decay. He also thinks that thinking progress is inevitable is a form of ideological control. In 0 to 1, Thiel writes, every great business is built around a secret that's hidden from the outside world. Yarvin's writing is full of secrets. He calls progress a Whig hallucination. He rereads history with the assumption that many obvious moral truths are retroactive justification. He argues that most people believe what they believe not because they've reasoned it out, but because they've been shaped by the cathedral. He also thinks that thinking progress is inevitable is a form of ideological control. What if the truth isn't just inconvenient, it's structured to remain invisible? Thiel echoes this in how he picks founders. He wants people who've seen something others haven't. In politics, he supports candidates who seem improbable until they aren't. He once said, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. You don't have to agree with Yarvin to notice that something in the liberal democratic consensus isn't working. Institutions feel slow, narrative control is very visible, people are uncovering history that's been hidden. Yarvin offers a story about decline. Thiel offers a way to act inside of it. Neither wants to fix the system. They want to reboot it. They want to recreate the wheel rather than just smoothing out the bumps. Thiel may never quote Yarvin directly. He doesn't have to. His strategy already assumes that Yarvin has the right idea. And if that's true, the future won't look like a better democracy. It'll look like a product with onboarding, version control, and a founder at the helm. From this research, I understand that Thiel is a contrarian. This is a contrarian idea. This is a reboot for him, but it's a crash for the rest of us. All while he and his friends get to eat cake. I've diluted Yarvin's ideas to make them easier to take in, but you must understand that they roll back society to a place that it's already outgrown. He's essentially asking you to put down your smartphone and use the rotary phone hanging on the wall in your kitchen. It's imperative for us to use the power that we have as individuals. We must divest as much as we can from a system that chooses to serve them and not its people. And divesting from these gluttonous billionaires and seeking alternatives is how I choose to hold on to my power. Maybe we should take some parts of Yarvin's ideas and apply them now. The only real power we have is to exit. So let's opt out economically. Can someone make engaging lifestyle content that focuses on replacing the things we used to use with things from small businesses and community activities? I feel like there's a real gap in content. It's hard to fully divest from these companies. Posting things like that could make it easier for all of us. Seriously, this video you're watching, I posted it on YouTube, but what I have been able to do is partially divest. I stopped using Google Chrome. I replaced Gmail with Proton Mail. It's not a complete fast from the system, but Each action adds to the collective impact. What are some things that you can change in your daily life? The tiny things that you could do to add to the collective. One thing for sure is that we need creators who make engaging content about the small businesses that they buy from. It has to look like the content we already see, but it has to focus on small businesses. I personally am searching for creators that can give me community core. Tell me in the comments if there's somebody that you can recommend. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you on Monday. Okay.